Let's turn attention now to gender issues as we focus on the ugly trend, domestic violence, that is fast eating deep into the fabrics of our society. Now, do you know that domestic violence is widespreading and shows no signs of lessening in Nigeria? The Clean Foundation reports that 1 in every 3 women admitted to being a victim of domestic violence. And recently, no fewer than 241 women groups stormed the Lagos State House of Assembly, demanding the expansion of the state's Domestic Violence Law 2007. The women said the law, in comparison with the Violence Against Persons Prohibition Act 2015, has several gaps in ensuring the protection of women and girls from violent acts. In Katsina, the state chapter of the Nigerian Association of Women Journalists, NAWOJ, they cried the spate of rape, forced marriage, and domestic violence bedeviling young girls and women in the state. The chairperson of the association, Hanatu Mohammed, also frowned at the increasing surge in the use of hard drugs and peddling amongst youths and married women in the state. It appears there seems to be no end in sight in nipping this ugly trend in the bud. And joining me live in the studio to talk more on this development is a gender advocate working with Evergreen Foundation, Mercy Ogbolu. Good to have you join us, Mercy Ogbolu.
Thank you very much.
Let's talk about the rising spate of domestic violence in Nigeria. And the most surprising thing is that we seem to be finding this rise among the educated population, because we know that some people will say maybe our parents went through it, and bulk of our parents were not as educated as we are today. Exactly. So why are we seeing this even amongst our generation where the level of education is high?
Well, I feel this domestic violence or the gender-based violence, though it happens in both parties. The male happens to the male, happens to the female. But between 85 to 95%, we have more of the females as the victims of domestic violence or gender-based violence. Now, I feel like during this period of lockdown, the coronavirus, it increased. You know, when before the lockdown, people were working, so they didn't have much time to spend with their families at home. So during this lockdown, a lot of people feel like they were trapped. You know, the lockdown thing, they were home and then they begin to, you know, discover some kind of characters in their partners they feel they haven't seen in a very long time or they have never experienced. And I feel like it's during this period of lockdown, you know, when they work, you know, they go out as early as possible to work, they come back very late, so they get a limited time to spend with their families. So during that period, they feel they are trapped. They don't have the freedom to go anywhere they like or do things. And this violence, gender-based violence we're talking about, it causes lots of damages. It could be psychological, emotional, and it affects a lot. I happened to, speak with some of these victims at our foundation, the Evergreen Dream Foundation. There was a case of a woman who, she was abused by her husband. You know, the man, she went to report her husband. After reporting, the husband was arrested to be taken to the court. And then she went to visit the husband at the police custody. And the man was so remorseful. He was looking sad. And then she decided to drop the case. Such things will keep happening.
Which is where which is where I'm going next, because we see enablers, people who say, it's fine, it happens in every marriage, our parents went through it, you can go through it, you take him back or take her back, you'll be fine. We see this over and over again, people who act as mediators and settle these issues. How do you deal with such people? Because again, in some cases, these people who are abused eventually die because, they kept forgiven. Yeah. So how do we deal with that cycle?
Well, I feel we need to just change our mentality as Africans. Marriage is not a prison, and marriage is not by force. If you feel your husband abuses you or your wife abuses you, you need to speak up. Though I think in most cases, people are actually scared to speak up. The victims are scared to speak up due to the stigma or lack of resources or support system. So I just feel we need to change the mentality. We need more people to advocate for these people. we need to make them, build up their boldness, their confidence. They just have to speak up so it will stop. Because if this violence thing keeps repeating itself, it's just going to become something else. Because I don't think we'll be able to curb it if we don't try to curb it in time or get these advocates to, try to build up this victim's confidence. They just have to speak up. Because there are cases where the victims were beaten to death.
Yes, absolutely.
And people really don't know what was happening because they were scared to speak out. Most of them were threatened by the abuser. So the fear of that threat makes them not to speak up.
Absolutely. We hope that more is done, especially when it comes to rehabilitating those victims.
Exactly.
Gender advocate with Evergreen Dream Foundation. Merci. Thanks for talking.
Thank you very much. And you can reach us on our social media platforms, on Instagram, on Facebook, at Evergreen Dream Foundation.
All right. Thank you.